because I trust my husband, I can freely be myself without having to compromise. I can freely be Geneice. He encourages me to be myself fully and honestly and just completely vulnerably myself. And that builds trust. So I'm able to just freely be myself, and I don't have to worry about whether he likes, this certain hairstyle on me or not, because it's me. So, and he accepts that. And, that's like, for me, that's the bare minimum. If they don't accept who you are, baby, move on. There are 7 billion people in this world. I'm sure somebody is going to accept you. So that's the bare minimum.
Hi everybody, Lee Scott here. Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. On here where we talk about life, leadership, and legacy, and we want to help you discover the leader within. I'm so excited because I got some special guests today. But before I introduce them, if you have not done it yet, go on YouTube and all podcasting platforms and subscribe to Leading. There's great episodes and content that has been coming out every single week. And I'm back from my break. So I'm super excited for the content that you're about to hear and enjoy. But today I got two people I love so much. They mean so much to me. They're some of my best friends in the world. And I'm super excited to interview them today. So please welcome to Leading with Lee, Sydney and Geneice Bagby. Hey, y'all.
Hi.
What's going on? Thank you. Hold the applause.
You know what? I'm not even going to entertain you. But thank you all for coming on. It's going to be really great, and I'm so excited for you all to be on here. So, for those people who don't know you, I just want both of you to kind of share a little bit about yourselves individually, and then we can really go forward with the conversation. Geneice, ladies first, and you have the floor.
Okay. I'm Geneice Bagby. I'm born and raised Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been in church all my life. That's pretty much it. I don't really have a whole lot to say.
She graduated from Oklahoma State University.
Thank you, Sydney, for being a husband.
You're welcome. More than welcome.
But that's it. My husband. This is my husband, Sydney. I don't know.
She has worked several jobs. She has worked in.
I worked in
several.
I worked at banks.
Yes.
Worked in customer service.
Yes.
What else have I worked at? Those are the main ones. I said administration. Yeah. Yes.
Great.
And now the CFO of a church plant here in Tulsa.
In Tulsa.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Sydney.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I really want to be so crazy because me and Lee just have this relationship, but I'm going to be normal for everybody today. So I'm born and raised in Tulsa. A little bit about myself. I've worked in retail management for years, and then I got out of retail management and decided to kind of do my own thing and launch my own business and work for myself. And now I'm also an executive pastor at a church plant here in Tulsa. And so those are just some of the things I'm working on right now.
Great. Well, thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourselves. I know that made you feel really uncomfortable, low key, but it's fine. It's great because I think that plays into how we talk about you both and just your story. So I brought you on because I want to talk to couples about how are they balancing their careers with pursuing the things that they want to do and marriage. So I kind of want you all to share a little bit about like your origin story. Like, how did you all meet? Like, how did that come about? And how has that gone? And like, how did you get to this point? Like, kind of share a little bit about that.
So the funny thing is, every time we're asked that question, we never agree on how we met.
That's real.
Geneice thinks we agree now. If she agrees with me, then we agree now.
Oh my God. you need help.
But for me, we do agree that we met in church.
Yes.
We do agree on that it was a church here in town that we met at. One of my really, really good friends was friends with Geneice, which essentially brought us to meeting each other and, as friends, of course. And we were friends for years, and we had become really, really good friends and close friends, probably best friends with each other for the few years before we decided to date, which some of our friends was like, y'all always together, be a couple. You know how church folks are, be a couple.
Oh, they love putting people together.
Yeah.
Without your permission.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we, was like, well, maybe, let's try it out. Let's see if this works. We were really kind of hesitant at first because we didn't want it to ruin our friendship because we were really, really, really good friends at the time. And so we decided to do it, and we dated, and then I proposed, we got married, and we'll be married 3 years in a couple of months.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Like, from my perspective, it's so wild to think about like how quickly time has gone by, because it seems like I've known you all for like 5 years, and but so much has happened in the past 5 years or so in the time that I've known you all, and so much has changed in your lives. And so it's like crazy to think, like, it technically, I mean, if we want to count the pandemic in pandemic years, technically y'all been married for like 7 years.
I'll take that.
No, 7 or 8 years. I mean, y'all closer to a decade.
I feel that way.
It does. I mean, it really does.
It said like they feel like we've been together for longer. I mean, we have.
Technically,
we haven't been married though. We've only been married for almost 3 years.
That's true. But it's that interesting feeling of just the moment that we've been living through, and low key still in, but we're not gonna talk about that. Let's kind of move on. So, kind of staying there, like you all have been like connected for a little bit over a decade. Like it's you spent most of your, like for Sydney, you spent like all of your 20s knowing Geneice. You all have spent so much time
when I met
her. Yeah. So that, it's such an interesting narrative in that regard. But how has your prior friendship like played into your marriage at this point? And like, do you think your friendship that you have for a number of years kind of shaped your marriage in some ways, or like how has it influenced this part of your this chapter of your life and this part of your story?
I think it absolutely has impacted our marriage in a good way, I would say, because for me, just knowing Sydney and getting to know him, it helps my comfortability with him. I feel like I know more about him as opposed to if I was to know him 2 or 3 years before we got married, to know him from we met in 2011. So to know him from then to now, like, it was just, I think, not trying to be deep, but I think the Lord knew that I needed to know him in such a way. And the fact that he was just like literally like in my backyard the entire time, like we were just mutual friends, like just all of our friends knew each other. And so we would just end up hanging out with each other, just on a regular basis. And, we would have little conversations here and there where it was like, oh, you like music. Oh, I like music too. Like, like we like the same type of music.
Yeah.
And there was like family dynamics that we kind of connected on and different things like that. So it was just like little things that we had in common, caused us to be like, oh, let's, hang out more. And so when we actually started to date, it was like, okay, like this could be cool because I could see you in a more intimate way.
Come on, intimacy.
But, just get to know you on a different level.
Right.
And so I think being friends really set the foundation for our marriage, because we have inside jokes, and we laugh together about the same things. And I just really, sometimes when you see other relationships that, may not have known each other as long as we have, it's interesting to see like their dynamic and our dynamic. And it's like, oh, well, maybe if you got to know each other a little bit more, you would have found that out, before and then be like, oh, we're married now. And it's like, I'm finding this out. And it's like, oh, if you would have waited and if you would have waited a little bit longer and found that out, that probably would have helped your decision as far as getting married. That would have been like, oh, wait, maybe I don't want to, hold off for a little bit.
I think we always say the difference in our relationship than a lot of people we're around is we actually knew each other before we got married, because not only were we friends for so long, but we also dated for a very lengthy amount of time before I even proposed.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's one thing, from going from friendship to relationship to marriage.
Right. I think that's so interesting, because you all, I mean, I've been lucky to be a part of some of the process, right? And have seen you all develop and grow together, and even separately, just as individuals. Like, just the moments that we met, or the time that I met you in my life, you both in my life, was an interesting moment anyway. But just have seen how you all have just navigated this changes has been so fascinating and so interesting. And I think, like you said, that foundation of your friendship actually played a huge role in you all having an understanding of who you are as people, as individuals, how you are as friends, how you are as a married couple, as part. Like, there's a lot of layers there. And I think I even realized for me too, there's some friends, it's you all, and I think maybe two other friendships that I have where they were friends for, a number of years, or the situation was they dated for an extremely long period of time. So there's a level of like history there, good and bad,
for sure,
I might add. So there's a lot of that plays a role. But I think, it's such a cool and beautiful thing when you can see the process of someone's story, especially in you all's case. Like, it's, y'all like one of my favorite couples in the world. Will probably forever be one of my favorite couples in the world. But kind of staying there a little bit more, like, unpack for me, because I've seen some things happen with you all just in your lives, and that foundation of friendship, like, kind of talk a little bit, and you don't have to share everything, but kind of talk a little bit how that foundation has played a role in some of the tough conversations that you probably have had to have as it relates to, hey, we got a business decision to make, right? Or we got to figure out the living situation, or there's a family thing that's going on and we're trying to figure out how to navigate that. Like, how has that friendship and that openness that you all have developed over the past decade played a role in you navigating some of those really kind of tough moments?
Well, I think it's important to note, like I was saying earlier, right? We went from friends to relationship to marriage, right? And I think it's important to know that on each level, not only does the dynamic change, but the personality change of the relationship, right? And so there's a little bit more trust involved, right? There's a little bit more growth involved, and everything begins to be heightened in a positive sense because I've spent time, and over time, I have learned these things, right? So I've learned how to move around you. I've learned how to trust you. I've learned how to respect you. I learned all of that. So I think for us, in some of the tough conversations, I think just even going back to what we just said, right, is that being with each other for the amount of time we've been with each other before we stepped into marriage made it a lot easier to make those tougher decisions in marriage, right? Because now I know you.
Yeah.
I know the things that you don't like.
Yeah.
I know the things you like. I know the things that get on your nerve. You know, we know all of that about each other now because that's learned over time.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think for us in those tough conversations and those tough decisions we have to make, we've allowed time to lead the way. What I've learned over time.
Yeah.
That's how I'm approaching the situation.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if I'm going to her with a tough conversation we got to have, I'm taking into consideration what I know she don't want to hear.
Oh yeah.
I'm considering all things, because the reality of it is that when you have to have a tough conversations, a lot of time our natural instincts as humans is we feel, this is unfortunate, and I think we learn this through therapy, how not to be this way. But I think naturally we feel a level of being almost attacked because I'm uncomfortable.
Yes.
We equate comfortability with being attacked.
Yes.
It's, no, I'm not against you. This is uncomfortable for both of us, but let's work through it.
Yeah. Yeah. We could go on a whole thing about that specific piece, because I think, I think as people get older, we don't know how to. Well, actually, let me change my statement. I think that there's a level of self-preservation that happens with a lot of people when they're having conversations about things that make them uncomfortable. Right? Like there was a lot of people who don't know how to navigate having conversations or tough conversations in general, because there's a level of like, oh, I feel like you are coming at me. Don't come at me, bro. That particular mentality. And we know that at the end of the day, it's going to help us move forward and be more productive if we have the tough conversations and actually be able to navigate those hard things. And since it's on my mind, like, like, how do you all like navigate? I mean, I know we're kind of in the subject, but what does that look like? Because I know for me, I'm not married. Like, I'm not in in a relationship. So, and there are gonna be people that listen to this or watch this that are kind of like, well, I like, you all have spent a lot of time, but what if I don't have the luxury of spending 10 years engaging with a person? What if it's not that case? What if it's, I have a short period of time, and people are at different phases and different stages in their lives, right? Like, what is something that you would encourage them on in having those kind of difficult or really like uncomfortable conversations to actually cause that relationship to move forward and actually be more healthy and productive and more open? Like, what is some advice would you give to them?
I would say your own self discovery is good. Your own self counseling, like going to therapy and working on yourself and helping yourself become whole. Because the thing about marriage is that it can definitely be a mirror. And when you get married to someone, they may not know the wounds or scars that you have. And so because they may not know that, when they say something, do something, it could be a trigger for you, and you unaware could, cause damage to that person. I mean, married or not, any relationship, you can cause damage to that person because they triggered you. Yeah. But don't do a disservice to yourself. Go ahead and do some self-discovery and go get some counseling and, go get some therapy and try to work those things out before you make a commitment to somebody else. Yeah. Because I feel like the less there is to unpack when you get married, it's going to be way smoother and easier. It's going to be a way smoother and easier marriage as a whole, because there's a lot of arguments that dissipate because you've already worked that out within yourself.
Yeah. I just to piggyback off what she said, this has nothing to do with marriage, but I was just having a conversation with her. And matter of fact, even as I'm thinking of this conversation, she says, I feel like this week we've been, talking through some things. And she said, I feel like it's preparing us for the interview we're doing with Lee. It's funny that I'm even telling this story right now, but I was telling her, I was saying the importance of knowing who you are.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, because I was having a conversation, and I won't go into detail, but I was having a conversation with a friend, and anybody know me knows that I am big on words.
Oh, yes. We know. You made it very clear.
Because I think words can be very damaging, or words can be very uplifting.
Yes.
You choose words carefully, especially when you have relationship with somebody, right? Yeah. And so he said a word that I wouldn't necessarily say it got under my skin. I just was like, I've never heard that before, so I don't believe it. Thank God I know who I am. I would take on that.
Yeah.
And then we had gotten into conversation, me and Geneice had gotten into conversation about the importance of knowing who you are. And I think just piggybacking off of what she said was, it is important to do that self-work first.
Yeah.
That you know who you are. Marriage is compromise. Absolutely. I'm not saying don't go into marriage and don't budge, but I'm saying when you are confident and you know who you are, it's hard to make you move off something you believe that you know is true.
Yes.
And that's what I think is important.
Yeah. And like when you know who you are, like you can compromise because you're not so like, like it's just easier to just, when you just know, and I mean, it's just so much smoother.
When you know who you are, I think when you know who you are, confidence doesn't intimidate. I mean, compromise doesn't intimidate
you. Yes. Right.
I can compromise.
Right. It's okay. It's okay to compromise. But when you don't know who you are, and you ready to fight at the drop of a hat, then we have problems. And you don't want a marriage with a bunch of problems and a bunch of issues. You want it to be smooth. You want it to be easy.
Should
be. Sure. Yes.
Whew. I mean, we could park there for like 6 months. Because that's a real thing. And you all know. We have had some conversations about some stuff that we don't even have to get to. We have some off-camera conversations about some stuff that you've seen with me. That there are some real things, and so it's powerful to point that out, because I think that is so helpful and so insightful that if you're confident, you can compromise because you know who you are, and it's not about destroying who you are. That's so good. That's a whole podcast within itself. But let's shift a little bit, because you all are starting a new venture together, right? Like Sydney, you stepped out has it been like 2 years almost?
Almost.
Oh, which is wild to me. Like it's so wild that 2 years ago you were like, screw corporate America. I'm about to go out on my own and do what I need to do for my family.
Literally my thought.
Yes. So, but it's been beautiful to see just this journey and process. Like, how are you all navigating, like you pursuing, being an entrepreneur in business? And then Geneice, you still kind of work in corporate America, but that you're starting to move away from that, which I think is amazing. But how are you all navigating coming into, working together and marriage? Because it can be a lot. It can be a lot.
For sure. I think right now, the interesting thing is, like you said, Geneice is still kind of in corporate America. So we're not really fully working together at the moment, but we are in some ways sliding her over to our business. Shout out to Bagby Management Group.
Yes, sir. You shameless plug. Come on, shameless plug.
So no, it's interesting. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a conversation with someone, and I don't even think I ever told Geneice this, but I had a conversation with someone, and I told them, they asked me how did I feel about working with my wife. I said, to be quite honest with you, I am a little nervous because here's another dynamic we have to add into our marriage, right?
Right.
Working together.
And so it's like once you got somewhat of a cruise or you're coasting in your marriage and you're like, we're in a good place, and everything is working the way it should be working for the most part. And it's like, now we throw this other dynamic in it. It can be a little, for me, it made me a little nervous.
Yeah.
Not because I don't have faith that my wife can do it or we can't work together, but it's just the reality of it is the fear of the unknown is a thing.
Right.
I mean, it is a thing. And so, but I think it's good the way we're doing it. I think it's good that she is still working in corporate America and we're slowly she's coming over to our business, because then it's not like, oh, we're thrust into working together and now we got to figure it out. Like, now you're together, now you're a team, figure it out, because the reality of it is I get on her nerves sometimes.
No, that's real. That's real.
My nerves sometimes.
Oh no, that's real. And you already know when you working together.
Yeah.
Like
we already married.
You go into the other room. So you almost have to indicate, and I don't know if I'm married, but I've heard married people say this. They have to talk to their spouse and say, like, this is married me talking to you.
Yeah.
This is a partner in business talking to you. Like, I want you to know that that they ain't the same person. So don't kill me,
Right.
Yeah. That's real, because the reality of it is there is a such thing as a home life, work life balance, right? And so when your home life and your work life
come together
is always together, there is no balance.
My God. So, that's real. That's real.
And so I mean it's working so far for us.
Yeah, so. I think there is a balance to it, and I think like he said, I am easing into what my part of it is, and I think absolutely, like there's probably going to be some moments where we get on each other's nerves, but I think that's part of going to another level, right? Is because we go to another level, we're going to run into some bumps. But I also know, because I know my husband is fast paced. He works quickly and, drop of a hat, he's getting it done. Me, I work more at a slower pace. I'm thinking it through. I'm, trying to analyze everything, trying to make a plan and all of these things. So I think probably the thing that will probably where we'll knock heads the most is at that. Like if he needs something done immediately and I work slower than that, that's where communication comes in, right? Like they maybe like 24 hours before, I need this done, or I need this person, like maybe he would give me like a list and tell me the things that need to be done by whatever date. And that would help me to get whatever he needs done. It's just a matter of going to another level in our marriage and be able to create a communication around that new level.
And understanding, just like in marriage, it's the same in business, right? I have some stuff I'm a little bit better in, I communicate a little bit better in, our strengths and weaknesses, right? And knowing how, when I'm weak, where her strength is, and vice versa, right? I think that's the biggest thing. It's just knowing where we both fall in that regard.
That's so good. And you both made me think about the fact that or Geneice, you brought up a beautiful point. Like you're even already communicating it now that you have some self-awareness about how you are. So therefore you're already communicating, hey, I already know that I operate this way. So could you do this for me so that this doesn't become a conflict and then start spilling over into our marriage life? Because I would suspect that, and this is something just about men, we tend to, if we have a work thing that we feel strong about, we're very straightforward about it and we're thought about it. And then we think that would be cool for us to just shift and be like, hey girl, how you doing? And you might be like, Negro, you didn't talk to me right the last time we had a business conversation. I don't know if you think this gonna work, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a thing that happens.
It is
right?
very much.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a thing that happens. So like, you being aware to realize like, I might need to communicate, hey brother, I'm gonna need you to think out those 5 things. But then at the same time too, it puts a demand on you, Sydney, to be like, okay, what are my expectations? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what are the things I need to be thinking about? What are the things I need? And then also gives you an opportunity to be vulnerable and be like, you know what? I don't know what I expect from you in this particular moment, because I just don't know yet. Right.
Yeah.
And so it creates a level of relief and change that can happen. I think that's really, really good. And there's going to be a lot of help to people, because, you know, we be out here doing wild stuff in relationships. Hi, everybody. Lee here, and I want to give some information to you. Do you need someone to host an event or come and speak at your event? You can now book yours truly. Book me for your event by visiting www.leeascott.com. I am so excited to connect with you and do work with you. Much love, and let's get started. Moving on, y'all know me, so you know I'm gonna be crazy. Anyways, moving on a little bit, just kind of on more of a beyond business, like, you all both have interests. Like, I've known you for some years. You all have like separate interests from each other. Like, how do you navigate, or how have you learned to support each other in your interests? For example, Sydney's love of reality TV, Geneice. How have you learned to navigate and support each other, and just kind of be like, what are some of the ways that you kind of just was like, you know, I don't like this, but you like this? Like, how are you doing that?
With like a real marriage, she likes.
What?
Right.
We like reality TV. Two has become what? One. I heard somebody in the background say,
you so church. I love it.
Lordy. Yeah, I just, you know, kind of let Sydney just be Sydney. I don't really, you know, I let him watch his shows. You know, for the most part, I do like, you know, a lot of the shows that we watch. He does, you know, he does like reality TV. But the thing is, that's another thing about being married, is that you also need to be open. You know, like some things I was really shut down to, turned off to, didn't like. But it's like, because he likes them and he watches them, it, you know, I'm being open, you know, cause me to like them too. And, you know, and not be so anti, you know, when he's watching reality TV or whatever. Like, most shows we watch together. There really isn't, like, some shows I watch by myself because he don't like them, and some shows he watch by himself because I don't like them. But for the majority, we watch TV together.
There's an unspoken rule in marriage that you are not allowed to watch a show that both y'all enjoy without each other. So all the married people.
For all the married people.
Has it happened?
What I'm saying is,
you do not have
it has happened.
You do not have to watch what your spouses watch all the time.
But I mean, no, but it's real though. I mean, I think that's where I think we talked about it earlier. That's where that I'm not intimidated by compromise come in. Yeah. I can watch a show with you. Listen, anybody know me? No, I am pro-Black to the heart. And my wife
is pro-Black.
Is pro-Black to the heart.
I am pro-Black.
No, but what I'm saying is she likes, you know, she likes Friends. And she likes The Big Bang Theory.
Why you gotta do this to me? And why are you doing this to me?
Exposed.
Why is he doing this to me?
And that's okay. The point I'm trying to get to a good point. Okay. If the church wait, I'm going somewhere. So what I'm trying to get to is that, ask me what I was just watching before I came and got on this interview.
Well, ask him.
Big Bang Theory.
See?
I mean,
growth, Geneice, that's growth.
Yeah.
That's growth.
It is.
You're going somewhere, huh?
But no, I mean, I think it is. Honestly, I think it's back to what we were saying about the compromise, right? And like she said, I'm gonna do and watch and be around some things that she don't care for, and vice versa. And I'm okay with that, because I think in the fact that we are a couple, we should never lose our individual selves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, if that's what you enjoy, I want you to do what you enjoy.
Yeah,
not what Sydney enjoys all the time.
Sure.
Do what makes you happy sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that goes into some people, like you said, like there's an unspoken myth. I think it's a myth that people gotta like sacrifice themselves for the marriage. And like you don't necessarily have to do that. There is such thing as compromise, but you don't have to fall down and die for the sake of the marriage. Like your individuality is your individuality. You don't have to stop being you because you're married now. That's not what that means.
Can we take a pause for the cause real quick? Because she said something, if you was taking notes. She said what the woman of God said was there is a difference between compromise and sacrifice.
Yeah. Wow. That's heavy.
Yeah.
I kind of want you to unpack that a little bit more for me, Geneice, because I think there's a lot of people, for the sake of, and I know I even struggle with this, for the sake of not wanting to feel lonely, they sacrifice themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they contort themselves. People, I've done it. I've contorted myself a little bit to try to just like to almost try to justify us being together.
For sure.
And or justify why this situation is happening. Like kind of dig into it a little bit more, because there may be some people that listen to this or watch this that may be really struggling with that. Like, how do you fight against the urge because of you're struggling with things happening around you, especially with social media? Social media will make you feel so many different things. Like, talk about how to stay firm to who you are a little bit more as it relates to that.
I think it goes back to the self-care that we talked about earlier, and knowing your worth and knowing your value and knowing the difference between compromising and this is changing who I am. That's two different things, because compromise is, what are we going to have for dinner today? Okay, well, I want rice. Okay, well, I want potatoes. Which one goes better? It was like, okay, well, I just won't have the potatoes, or I just won't have the rice. That does not change who I am.
Yeah.
That is just I'm not going to have potatoes today.
Yeah. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. But whenever I am changing, because I'm trying to think of something. Whenever, say my husband likes the color yellow and I decide to paint my toenails yellow, like it can be a little, like if I didn't, I'm trying to think, help me. But I just feel like if you gotta like change like complete, like say if my husband, he didn't like natural hair. My hair is natural. I have natural hair. But if my husband didn't like natural hair, I'm proud of my natural hair. I love wearing my fro. I love wearing my puff. I love wearing whatever I want to wear, however I want to wear it. And my husband does not like natural hair. That means that when I have to press my hair or make it, straighter or whatever to please him, that's taking away from who I am, because I am in love with myself and I love my natural hair, and he doesn't, then I have to strip away a part of me because to please him. And that's the difference, is where I'm taking away from me, the essence of who I am, to please someone else, as opposed to rice and potatoes.
Yeah. I think if you break it down even just a little bit more simple. I really don't want to sound like the preacher right now. But yeah, I don't know what to say.
Here's one thing about me. I want people to be themselves on here. So whatever you're going to say, you can say, brother.
What you are allowed to do is you're allowed to compromise on things that don't hold any weight of value. What you are not allowed to do is sacrifice your soul or your life to please somebody else that'll change up on you as quick as you change up on them.
Right.
That's real. That's just life. If you can remember that, you're good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the difference right there, right? It's in marriages, I can sacrifice this TV show. It don't compare to this. I can sacrifice those $300 sneakers I want. It don't compare to this. I can sacrifice that meal I really wanted today because I'll get to eat it another day. What I cannot sacrifice is I cannot sacrifice on my beliefs and what I stand and hold true to my heart and my character because I am changing for you and not for me. And that is not sustainable.
Another part of it is that, you know, going back to us knowing each other for so long, like, because I trust my husband, I can freely be myself without having to compromise. I can freely be Geneice. He encourages me to be myself fully and honestly and just completely vulnerably myself. And that builds trust. So I'm able to just freely be myself, and I don't have to worry about whether he likes, you know, this certain hairstyle on me or not, because it's me. So, and he accepts that. And, that's like, for me, that's the bare minimum. If they don't accept who you are, baby, move on. There are 7 billion people in this world. Somebody is going to accept you. So that's the bare minimum. He accepts me for who I am and allows me to freely be myself. Then there's the trust comes in, and it's like, I can do whatever I want to do, you know, with respect, but I can do what I want to do and everything's okay. Like,
y'all, I just got so happy. I just got so encouraged by that. Like, honestly, I think that's what just people want in general. Like, it should not be that hard for somebody to love you for you. Like,
exactly.
But that also exposes a problem that we have in our culture is we don't ask enough questions, right? That shows that in the dating stage, we don't ask or find out enough stuff about people to where, like, like you said, Geneice, if natural hair is your thing, well, brother, I'm not the woman for you because I'm a woman that loves my natural hair. So if you have a preference, pursue your preference. But, you know, I think also, too, there's a disconnect to some degree between non-negotiables and preferences. Like, preferences can change, right? Like, you know, let's be kind of real. I mean, all of us, now let's be honest. We all do have types. We all have things that we just like. Let's just be real about it, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that should become more important than your value system in some ways. Now, I am a firm believer that I'm a person of faith, so you understand my perspective, so we know where I come from. But I believe that I can connect with somebody that has both what I want and what I need. Right. Sure. But I think a lot of people, when they approach this particular topic or just dating or, you know, relationships in general, or ultimately going towards marriage, they don't do that well enough. So it creates these moments where folks are out here doing dumb stuff. And you all know this. And I'm going to share this story because it's just real. One of the things I recognize when I reflect on my dating past, and my dating history hadn't always been great. And you all have been there for some parts of it. But one thing I will say in reflection, I always knew what I for the most part, it may not have been perfect, but I always knew what I wanted to do with my life. So therefore, when I came into a situation where I'm dating a woman or engaging her, I'm already straight up being like, hey, this is something that I want to do, right? Like, can you be okay with that? Like, how would that make you feel if I pursued this, right? Like, I had enough vision to be very clear, and there were many of them that was like, well, I can't rock with that because, you know, I don't know, you know what I mean? For a variety of reasons, right? But I think me knowing that to some degree has been helpful, because then it wasn't one of those situations where it's like, oh, I didn't tell you, we've been together a year and a half, and I didn't tell you that I was thinking about this. And you want to, you know, you want to do this particular thing, and I want to live my life this particular way, and it's not going to work. And so therefore, you know what I mean? And so I think that that's really important. And you all just oh man, I hope that people really hone in on that thought, Geneice. Like, that is so, so helpful. And I think it makes it easy to roll into my next question. And I don't know if I've already asked you this, but I think I have. But how has that self-discovery for both of you? Like, how has that knowing yourself well influenced your perspective of your spouse? Like, how has that played a role in how you all interact? Because obviously, me knowing you all know yourselves well enough and are willing to do the work. Like, how has that played a role in how you see each other and the value that you see in each other as you are developing and growing in your marriage?
I think it's helped us. I think, like, really, I guess for me, going to counseling, getting the therapy that we needed, because there was a time, I think it was before we got married. Maybe it was before, but there was a time in our relationship, and it was almost like I kept hitting a wall. And when we would get into conflict, it was like I would hit this wall. Mm-hmm. And Sydney said, that is something that happened way before I got here. And you need to go and talk to somebody about that.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's like, I don't know who did that, but that is causing you to get to this place, and it needs to get healed. Whatever it is, we need to go figure out what that is, and we need to get it healed, because you keep hitting this spot, and we need to grow from that. And so I went to therapy and I went to counseling. And so I think going into, like, our marriage now, seeing him for who he is, you know, I love him very much. And I just love how we balance each other out. Because, you know, we're married, but we are opposite. we are so opposite. And so it's just so interesting to me, because it's like, you know, we're so opposite, but when the time comes for us to encourage each other, inspire one another, motivate, you know, like, we are each other's biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
You know, and all those things that matter, we stand up to the plate whenever it comes to that. So I think, you know, therapy outside of marriage, therapy inside of marriage, like, all of that is.
Yeah, I think for me, the funny thing is, she goes to therapy and counseling much more than I do now. But I think for me, I remember this conversation. I told Geneice this a while back. I think it might have been right before we got married or right after we got married. I don't even know if she remembered it, but I vividly remember a conversation I had with someone who I thought was a friend, because as I reassessed the conversation, there's no way you could have been my friend and thought that you could step to me the way the person stepped to me.
Wow.
But he said something to me, and he had an issue with the way he thought or felt Geneice was behaving towards him or talking to him, or, you know, and I was like, no, I don't think she meant nothing to buy it, you know. Well, I'm like, no, she didn't mean anything about buy it, because I know her and she don't know you. And you know, it was one of those conversations, and I remember telling Geneice that, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? Was when you know each other, and this is doing the self work and going to therapy and whatnot. The reality of it is because I've done work on myself, I'm not intimidated by the strong Black woman she is.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And for some guys, why she look that way? Why she talk to me like that? Why she? And it's kind of like, I don't know who you're used to talking to and not talking to that makes you feel intimidated when you're in the presence of someone else that is not like the women you're normally used to being around. But just because it's unfamiliar doesn't make it wrong or doesn't make it. And so, I think that for me, that was like, oh, you actually need therapy.
Yeah.
Because you're intimidated by somebody
you don't even know. you don't even know.
Yeah.
You don't even know.
Wow. Oh, that's so good. I literally was reminded of a conversation I literally had this morning. I had coffee with my pastor this morning, and when you all were talking, it made me realize how important it is. We were talking about grief. I know this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but we were talking specific about grief and how complicated grief is. And all three of us, we could have a whole conversation right now about that, because I have seen you all go through grief, and then I'm experiencing it in my life right now personally, right? Yeah. And seeing the waves of how that plays and how that we think it's just you want to think it's just a moment, but sometimes it's not a moment. Sometimes it literally stays with you. And he said something that really struck me. And when you all were talking, and I'm bringing it up because I think it ties into what you're talking about, is that like, sometimes you got to get to a point where you're so willing to deal. You gotta grieve seasons in your life, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we hadn't taught people how to do that well. Like, there are things that have happened to you both before you got together that if you didn't go through the process of going to therapy, talking to folks, praying about it, doing all those things, and grieving those things, it would have affected your marriage so profoundly, because you had not reconciled that thing in your life beyond that person. Because the reality is, for both of you, it's neither one of your responsibilities to give yourself happiness or actually address the things that happen to you just in your own personal life. And I think we sometimes, I think that's a cultural problem. I think in our culture, we're so busy trying to find the answer in people instead of trying to discover who we are within ourselves and getting healthy and whole. And therefore, when somebody triggers us, we have the capacity to be like, you know what? You don't have that much power over me. Cool. Right. I'm comfortable. Right. Like I'm coming to know who I am. I think that both of you bringing it up was so profound and helpful. And I think people will be inspired by that, because it really is needed at this particular juncture and point. So many people are not taking the time to get healthy and whole because they're just, they're just assuming that it's just, we're just supposed to happen. And this person is going to make me get over this thing. And the reality, it isn't. Like, it just doesn't work like that. We're about to say something?
Yeah, I was, because you said something that kind of just got me, going. Sometimes when we talk and we can just go back and forth. Yeah. But what you just said, when you said that as Black people, sometimes we don't take the time to do the self work. We don't take time to do discovery. We rely on people for the answer. What I think is important to note is that that is very true, and I think we do that because we have always had to rely on people.
Yes.
And so there is no harm or there's no need to be ashamed of having to rely on people. Matter of fact, I would even go as far as to say, take that same energy you had to rely on people and rely on a therapist to help walk you through some things that you need to walk through.
Yes. Which gets on a whole other conversation of how in our culture we need to make therapy and just counseling more accessible, right? Yep. Like there just has to be more resources out there. And I know that I don't know if every city has this, but I know in my hometown, and I don't know, you may be able to tell me if there was something like this in Tulsa. I just found out about this organization here in Jackson that they provide therapy on a sliding scale. What they do is they find out what your income is, and they actually, you can pay somewhere between 10 to, generally the full price. Now, most of their therapists are people that are trying to get their hours, for, get clinical hours or whatever. But ultimately, it still is an opportunity and an outlet for you to get some help. And sometimes people just really, and I know I have taken that to that advantage, because I called him. I was like, listen, I can't afford to go to a therapist right now, but if there's an opportunity that I can get on a waiting list or whatever and go talk to somebody, that might be helpful for me, because I need to be able to process some of the things that I am currently feeling in my life that I had no control of. Right. Like, these are things that happen to me, and I don't want to fall in the trap of blaming myself for something that happened to me that I had no control of. And people do that. People blame themselves for something not going different, right? And they respond different kind of way. People have the fight. They either fight or they flight. It's fight, flight. Somebody said this to me. Actually, a lady that worked for CPS that I know very well. She actually said what happens is actually three things. It's fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. And some of that is tied to what happened to us as children. So therefore, we respond a particular way because that is fundamental to our personality. And we have learned how to build, we learn how to build like structures in our lives around those things. Yeah. And whether it's good or bad, right?
Yeah. And so on what you just said, I literally heard this the other day and I was like, very interesting, because we never heard this. We always hear when you backed into a corner, mm-hmm. You'll fight to get out of that corner, right? Mm-hmm. We've always kind of taught that. And I actually heard this guy say the other day, he said, that's not true. He said, when you're backed into a corner, what's in you will come out.
Yeah.
You said fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
Yeah.
One of those things happen. You don't always fight and scratch your way out of the corner. Sometimes you freeze in that corner.
Yep.
So I thought about that when you said that. I was like, very interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think that's great. So we're about to get to the end, because I respect you all's time. I love y'all. But I have like three more questions, and like, what is a piece of advice that you would give to people that are dating and they want to be married? It's like, what is one thing that you can think of that's just will be helpful for people who are pursuing, like yours truly?
I would encourage them by saying, hey, do what works for you two. Nobody wants to be in that relationship but you two. And at the end of the day, as long as y'all are happy and y'all are coming back to each other, that's what matters, right? Because of where we stand in our faith, we want to be honorable unto God, right? So never lose your honor, but do what works for you. I mean, in our relationship, we did some stuff that church people probably would frown upon naturally. They wouldn't necessarily care for it. And that's okay. That's their belief, and that's their guilt and their condemnation and all of the things that they have to deal with and walk through with God, right? That don't fall on me. Listen, no issues with God and the devil ain't my issues with God and the devil. Right. So that I'm not going to allow you to, that's just me being me, but I'm not going to allow that to hinder me, because what we did, it worked for us and we stayed honorable. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't get it when they hear our story. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people probably even think we lying, and that's okay too.
But for the sake of being on a conversation, could you like unpack that? Because I don't know who might listen to. They don't really know your story.
So we dated for a while, and then we moved in with each other. And where a lot of people would like to talk about, the Bible talks about shacking, and we're church folks. Yeah, shacking. Yeah. Well, find it in the Bible. Okay. Anyway,
that's actually very real. But
no, I'm real. So I'm saying, like, a lot of people would normally, a lot of believers, especially believers, African American believers, wouldn't appreciate that we
people of the Christian faith.
Yeah. A lot of them would naturally accept that or like that. For us, it worked. We moved in together. We moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. We slept in opposite rooms for a couple years or longer.
It was the entirety of our relationship.
Yeah, up until we got married
together. Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, they wouldn't like that, but for us, it worked for us. And so I'm telling people when I say do what works for you, do what works for you, but be honorable unto God. Don't put your now. If you ain't strong enough, then don't do it.
Don't do it.
But if you can, do it, because guess what we learned in that process? We learned how each other live.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We learned certain things that you don't learn into marriage. Like, okay, she probably was like, okay, well, I know this Negro can cook, so that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But you learn certain things that you don't get the privilege of learning sometimes until you live with someone, right?
Yeah.
And so that worked for us. That don't work for everybody.
No.
So do what works for you, but please don't be put to shame for what works for you that other people might not agree with.
Right.
Because one thing we didn't try to do, one thing I told Geneice is I don't want to hide it.
Yeah.
Because if I was going to have to hide us living together, I was never going to be able to invite my friends or family over.
Right.
And that's too much work for me trying to lie to you, and you ain't got no heaven or hell to put me in. What? Work.
That's true. And you're saying that from a Christian perspective. And there are people that are here that are like, that's nothing, right? Like,
yeah. And that's honestly, for somebody like us, I would say to them people, they can attest to what we're saying, that there was time we got to spend with each other and learn of each other.
Right.
Because listen, we could have moved in together and we could have not liked some things about each other, and we could have said, actually, I wouldn't marry nobody like this.
Right. That's real. No, that's real.
And then we wouldn't have to tell her to believe or say, well, the Bible talks about not divorcing. With believers, there's always something. We don't want us to chat, but you don't want us to divorce either. So, it's like, it's always something. And so it was like, for
I'm
us,
so dead.
Listen, I love my church people. I do. But I would say do what works for you. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Geneice, do you have any advice?
I would say do the work. You need to absolutely, like I've been saying the entire time, get to know you, get to know who you are as a whole. Like, know what you like, know what you don't like, know what you'll tolerate, know what you stand for, know what you won't stand for. All of those things are so important to know before you get married. Like, especially like with women, like, do you want a confident man or do you want a dominating man? Like, there's a difference. Yeah. Do you want a secure man? Do you want an insecure man? Like, make up, talk, like tell yourself, talk about the type of person, type of man, type of woman you desire to be married to, because that's very important, because there's just so many different things, especially when people don't get to know themselves or find out the things that they need to get healed on. When they come together, it's just, it can be a whirlwind of things that you have to go through together. That can be really challenging, because we know couples now, who've been married maybe 1 or 2 years, and the thing is, they're still finding out things about each other. And it's like, you see the dynamic, and it's like, whoa, because it's like, if they would have done the work, they wouldn't be having this argument right now, or they wouldn't be running into this issue, or, having these hard conversations, like certain things they would have just sailed right through. But because they just decided to be together, oh, you're perfect for me, I'm perfect for you, let's be together, and you didn't do the due diligence, and now here we are 2 years down the line, and you're into stuff, and it's like, oh, I wasn't ready for that, So.
Yeah, you all just have been teaching the youth out here and giving so much insight and wisdom. I that's so good. Like, do the work and do what works for you. That I mean, that's if that's two principles to live by, whether you in a relationship or not. Like, you need to do some work for yourself. Like, you need to get healthy, hold, and heal. Like, that's a huge thing. And do what works for you. Like, that's just some powerful stuff to live by. Like, that's just so good. So one thing that I love about you all are very you care about family and people that you're connected to. But kind of talk to me a little bit about, like, this question was asked of me a few years ago when I lived in Tulsa and I worked for TTCU Federal Credit Union. One of our executives used to always say this to me. She used to always tell me to pay it forward. How are you all? And what I mean by that is, how are you making an investment to other people? Like, you can maybe speak to it individually, as a couple. It really doesn't matter. But, well, actually, how as a couple are you all investing into other couples or speaking into other couples' lives? Or, like, what are some of the things that you're doing to kind of really be a guide? Because I mean, honestly, I'll say this, and I know I'm about to let you all speak, but you all have probably been one of the most influential couples in my life personally. Like, just full stop. Like, by watching you all's lives, by watching how you take care of each other, by seeing the seasons of things that you all have gone through, and being there has influenced me tremendously. So I just want you to know that. And I want other people to hear me say that to you, because I love you all so much. But put that aside, how have you all, like, influenced or in other words, paid it forward to other couples and just people in your lives?
I think Sydney and I do really well at just supporting. Yeah. We support, just our friends, if our friends are having an event or something, or, we know a lot of singers. So usually
yes, you do.
Usually it's at church, or, when somebody has a birthday party or something, we always try to be there, show our faces, be physically there for our friends and family. As for me, as far as like paying it forward, I think just being there, because I know for me, when people show their faces and they're physically there for me, it means the world. I mean, especially people that I really love and, who really matter to me, when they show up for me, and it's, for real, I want to be able to show that right back. I want to be able to reciprocate and be like, I'm here for you. Like, anytime you need me, like, one of the things that I really, love about Sydney is that he's really there for his family and really supports them and helps them to a level that I don't think I would, really, I'm not there, but maybe I'll get there. But I just love that about him. And I think, we really, do that for our friends and our family. As far as, like, for me, like, paying it forward is that we, we try to be there for everybody as much as we can. So that's what I think as far as paying it forward.
I totally agree. I think people have to learn the power of being, just being present, just being there. Every time somebody reach out to you, they ain't looking for your opinion. Sometimes they need your ear. Yeah. They don't need your mouth.
Yeah.
So it's the importance of learning that, right?
Yeah.
But also too, I think I'm the kind of friend that's gonna challenge you, because I don't mind being challenged.
Yeah.
So I'm the kind of friend where if I'm at your house and you're a married couple, I mean, we have some married couple friends that'll tell you that I'm a butt in your business. Because if I think something needs to be addressed or checked, if something needs to be addressed or checked, I'm gonna just say it because it needs to be said, not to cause division or strife, but to clear up confusion.
Yeah.
And so because I'm that way, I listen, be that way with me too. I'm that friend that I will butt in and you can butt in me. And if it ain't my business, you tell me it ain't my business. Because if you butt into my business, I'm gonna tell you it ain't your business, but I don't want you to be a part of it. So I'm just that kind of person though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But that was so good. I mean, that was so insightful. So here's my last question for you both, because it's been such a joy to talk to you all. Like I said, I love you all so much, and I'm so grateful that I've been a part of you all's story, and got to sing Maxwell at your wedding. I love Max. But like, this is my fun question. I ask it to everybody. And Geneice, you have had all episode to think about it a little bit. But I ask this question all the time, and I want to ask you both. And ladies first, since you hear Geneice, what song would you use to describe yourself and why?
I'm just going to say, I'm going to say, this is no disrespect to my husband and my marriage, but I'm
Wait, what?
I mean, because of the song, but I'm going to say Beyonce, Me, Myself, and I. I'm going to be my own best friend.
Yes, that's good. Sydney?
Honestly, I feel like I don't know. Wow. As much as I've heard you ask this question to people, I never anticipated that I would have to answer it.
Being real though, it is kind of a tricky question because songs sometimes depends on seasons, right? Like there's some songs, I want to listen to OT Genesis, get into the money every day. And then there's some seasons in my life where I want to listen to Something's in the Way by no, it's not called Something's in the Way, but this is Nirvana song called Teen Spirit. I think it's called Teen Spirit. And then there's some moments in my life where I want to listen to Let's Get Back to Eden. And then there's some moments in my life where I just want to listen to Time by Hans Zimmer, and it has no music to it, and it just gets me like, it is a complicated and kind of a tough question.
I think honestly, what the song that's excuse me, the song that's kind of ringing in my head right now, I guess, based off of this conversation and us just talking about self-help and self-work and doing the work and all that stuff. I think what's ringing in my head right now is Imagine Me by Kurt Franklin.
Yeah.
And honestly, in this moment, I feel like that best represents who I strive to be.
Yeah.
And in the song he says, trusting you, living free totally, just that kind of stuff. Like, imagine me being free. You know what I mean? Like, really, we talk about freedom and being free, but imagine what it really looks and feels like to 100% totally be free.
Yeah.
And so I think that song is what I think represents who I want to be right now.
Well, Geneice and Sydney Bagby, I love y'all. And thank you for coming on. It's been so good. And I think people are going to be really, really encouraged just by your story and what you have had to share. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching and or listening to this week's episode of Leading with Lee. If you have not done it yet, subscribe on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. If you want to get more information and connect with me, visit me at www.leeascott.com or follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Lee A. Scott II or Lee A. Scott II. So thank you for watching. Much love, and let's get started.